Perfect. So we have a lot of desktop users. Renee's here from the airport. She emailed me yesterday. She's like, I need this information, but I'm at the airport. Okay, so how I always start my training, if you've never been here before, I'm Candus Kampfer, the creator of Confidence of QuickBooks and QuickBooks Simplified. I have been teaching QuickBooks for over 12 years now. I started working with local clients and teaching like at the Builders Exchange and that kind of thing. And then I started my YouTube channel and started teaching online virtually about 4 years ago. And if you haven't heard, the reason I did that is because I was visiting my hairdresser and her business wasn't doing as well as she wanted. And I said to her, like, well, how many cuts and colors do you need to be able to rent an office space where you could get more business? And she didn't know. And I said to her, well, how do you track your books? And she said, QuickBooks. And I tell you what, I like literally jumped out of my chair and I'm like, oh, how do you not know this stuff and you're tracking QuickBooks? And so long story short, she cut my hair. We pulled the reports. She got super emotional and she's like, that's what I've been doing. I said, yes. And it was one of those days where you get like that aha moment. I was driving home in my car and I said to myself, I no longer want someone to not know what I call the 3 clicks to be able to pull a report. And I'm going to start teaching this so that I know entrepreneurs will have the information they need. So that is where kind of why I started teaching online versus just locally. It's been an amazing journey. I get to work with people all over the world. We're like this close to 1 million views on my YouTube channel. So I'm super excited about that. We'll have to do like some little celebration when that happens. So let's pull our thought of the day and get started on learning how to do credit cards properly, because it's the #1 question I get on my YouTube channel. Let me know. Give me a 3 if you're struggling with your credit cards. In the chat box, if you're here with me on Zoom. On Facebook, you can share it there too. Okay, let's see. I dedicate today to love. That's our thought of the day. 3s. Okay, good. You guys are in the right place. And Samantha says she's not doing it yet. Okay. Notice how wonderful life can be. You approach each day with the attitude of love. So one of the things I notice a lot of people do with themselves, and what one of the things this makes me think of, is people usually beat themselves up when they've made mistakes in QuickBooks. They beat themselves up like, why haven't I figured this out? Why didn't I, like they're kind of hard on themselves. Maybe that's you, I don't know. But the truth is anytime you're learning something new, it takes time to learn. So be kind to yourself along the journey, because typically if you're doing QuickBooks, it is not your primary business. Sometimes I get bookkeepers, but a lot of times I work with entrepreneurs or business owners, small business owners, and the wife is doing the books, or the husband's doing the books, and they're like, I can't figure this out. Like, I'm doing my best, but bookkeeping isn't my thing. All right, so that's where I come from. Rachel goes, that's me. And so my style of teaching is, Susan says, that's me, is to make it as simple as possible. And you probably figured that out because you probably found me through one of my trainings. So let's go in. We're going to try to make this as simple and as easy as possible, making sure I got my QuickBooks up. Yes. Okay, so we had a couple. Me too. Good. So here's my QuickBooks. Let me know in the chat that you can see it, and we're going to just roll with it. So today's really more of like a laid back, low key training. I am going to be doing more of a how to read your reports and kind of more of what I've realized is one of my passions, which is teaching you guys how to truly track the different areas of your QuickBooks next Wednesday. So if you get emails from me, and you probably are here because of that, I shared it. And if not, if you're on Facebook, I'll be sharing that. So you guys join that next week. You do have to register for that one to attend, but that one's gonna be really good. That one's like my real kind of more the part of me that I think is really special, which is more about understanding how to set up your items so that then when you get to the reports, because a lot of people, and the same with credit cards, there's a lot of different ways to enter your credit cards in QuickBooks. It really depends what you want to see and what you need. Okay, so you guys say you can see my screen. Awesome. All right, so just basics, because one of the things I realize is everybody here is at different levels. So if I'm covering something you already know, great. It's always a good refresher, but some people aren't where you are, so be patient, all right? So here under vendors, this is the home screen within the desktop version. The online version doesn't have a home screen, but the concepts of how to use QuickBooks are the same, all right? So one of the common questions I get asked is people don't, when you go to add a new name into QuickBooks, people don't always know what a vendor versus a customer versus an other is and when to use those. So vendors, which is this part up here on the top, are all the people and places you spend money. So whether you go here and you click on vendor, whether you go over here to the left and click on vendor, or you go up to the top, all of them are the same. And that's one of the things I love to empower my students with, which is realizing there's not just one way to get anywhere in QuickBooks. It's all about just figuring out the way that works for you, but also knowing, like, if you're in a deposit screen, but you want to go to the vendors, you literally just go up here. Because what I see a lot of people doing is they only know how to enter it in one way. They only know how to go to the home screen and get to something. I want to inspire and empower you to go, I know there's other ways to get there, and I don't only have to go one way. All right, let's just throw that out there. You guys are going to get like random Candusisms all throughout this. The things that I think you guys need to know. The second biggest thing that you need to know with vendors, or there's more than one way to enter your expenses. I know we're going to talk about credit cards, but this is the foundation. If you don't have a good foundation, the other stuff is confusing. All right, so hopefully you guys are enjoying this. So within the vendors, a lot of people, I was working with a private client recently. So somebody's raising their hand. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat box and I'll get to it. I don't want to be just too distracted by the different questions. Let me figure it out, but you can put it in the chat box if you have a question. But vendors are the people and places you spend money. What I see a lot of common people doing, one of my private clients was doing this week, was she was entering bills and then using pay bills, which is a two-step, 1, 2. And people think that they need to use their credit cards this way as well, and it's not true, okay? So within QuickBooks, there's 2 ways to enter expenses. One is to enter bills. That gives you accounts payable, but most small businesses and most entrepreneurs I know don't need it. If you do want to track it for cash purposes, cash flow purposes, you can do some stuff there. But like when her husband was going to Home Depot to get supplies, she was entering it and then paying it, which is 2 steps. What you can do instead is enter it directly in here under write checks or the check register. That's more about getting started, but I want to at least have a foundation, all right? So as far as credit cards are concerned, the key is to, let me just check and make sure I see the chat. I want to make sure we don't have any problems. Yeah, so if you have questions, you put them in the Q&A and I'll cover them when I'm done with my basic training, because probably most of your questions are going to be covered within that, all right? Thank you for whoever is supporting her and knowing how to use the Zoom thing. Perfect. Okay, so when you go to enter your credit cards, there's a few different things to know. One is when you're entering your credit cards, so you can go up under banking, enter credit cards, or down here on the home screen, there's enter credit cards. They both get you to the same place, so it's just up to you which one you prefer. But what you do is you need to first set your credit card up. So the first step actually is to go under list, chart of accounts, go down to, if you don't have any credit cards. So you'll see, like, I actually have quite a few credit cards. Hold on, I need to shrink my screen just a little bit. Oops. It likes to do this to me, where, because something, I don't know what I've done, but something, I got a new computer and the bottom bar is like in my way, so it won't show me that. So go down, so you go down to account and you click new. And if you have the same problem I do, I just shrink my screen. I'm sure there's a setting, I'm just not sure what the setting is to change how my Windows is set up. So click new, and then you're gonna go here and you're gonna just pick credit card. If you have older, this is the 2019 version of QuickBooks. If you have an older version of QuickBooks, you may need to select down here. It just depends which version you're using. Sometimes I have people still using 2009. I don't remember what that looked like. I used it, but I don't remember what it looked like. So just go and look for the credit card. All right, feature, and then click continue. Now this is one of the things this is how I recommend doing your credit cards. I was working with somebody the other day and they had multiple credit cards and I was like, oh, you listened to me, that's good. So if you only have one credit card, it's not as important, but if you end up having multiple credit cards, so this is what I do. I usually use the bank that you have it at. So if it's Chase or Amex or Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, I'm trying to think of all the places it could be. You just type that in. So we'll do Wells Fargo. I don't know if I already have a Wells Fargo. I think I do. And then you put in the last 4 digits of the account number. You don't put in the whole thing. You don't have to put in the whole thing, but you put the last 4 because when it gets into your chart of accounts, and if you have more than one credit card, it's easy to find that specific card. So if you have credit cards right now and you have multiple credit cards for the same bank and it's really hard to figure out which is which, highly recommend going in and adding the last 4 digits. And I'll show you how you can do that in a second. So that's the first step. Sometimes people have a corporate credit card and then they have sub-accounts. We're not going to cover that today because probably most of you don't need that. If you do, I do have a training for that on my blog or on YouTube. All right. So then you can come down here. You can add a description if you want. Now, where people seem to get confused is with their balance. They're entering their opening balance. Do you need to enter here? Do you not? There's a few things. So if you enter it here under entering opening balance, it will put it directly to opening balance equity account because you don't know where you spent the money. So it's a generalized equity account that you can close into your retained earnings at the end of the year. If you know where you spent your money, or it's a brand new credit card, you're just getting started, you don't need this feature. You can just hit save and close. Or if you already, it asks you if you want to do the bank feed, I'm going to hit no for now. If you've already been using your credit card, like see here, this Amex doesn't have the last 4 digits. You can just right click and click on edit account and add, I don't know what the digits are with the Amex, but you just add your numbers and then now it's on there. So if you've been using it and you didn't have that, it's easy to fix. All right. So if you've been using your credit card and you didn't start with an opening balance, you can enter it from the register at any time. To do that, you actually just open it up, pick the date. So credit cards are what's called cash basis, which means at the moment you charge the transaction, no matter if you're cash or accrual basis with your accounting, I'll explain that in a second. Credit cards are cash basis. So at the moment you charge it, it's an expense. Doesn't matter when you pay for the credit card. It's at the moment you actually swipe the card, the date you used it, that's the expense. So somebody recently asked me, before the end of the year, do I need to pay my credit card off to get those expenses? And the answer is actually no, because credit cards are cash basis. So no matter if you're accrual or cash basis, credit cards are at the moment you charge them. Okay. What's cash versus accrual basis? When you're pulling your reports within QuickBooks, you can choose cash basis or accrual basis, which means cash is when my customer pays me, it's income. When I spend the money, it's an expense. Accrual basis is at the moment I invoice my customer, it's income. And at the moment I enter a bill or I pay for something, like with a check or swipe my card, it's an expense. So cash basis is just, I'm only having to pay tax on it when I actually get paid from the customer, okay? So as far as credit cards are concerned, they're still cash basis. So even if you haven't paid for it, the expectation is you will at some point. And for accounting, you track it for that date, all right? So hopefully that is very clear and that makes sense to you guys. If not, let me know in the chat box if that was confusing, okay? It's actually super important when you start using QuickBooks to understand the difference and how each of the system works within QuickBooks. The key to QuickBooks isn't using all the features, in my opinion. The key is knowing what you need for your business and then building the software around specifically your business, right? So what you can do is, depending on what date you want your opening balance to start, say you're going to start tracking your credit cards as of 2019, then you can start as of December 31st, 2018, and just put in your, it would be a charge in this example, but you could put in your opening balance. So let's just say it was 100, we'll say it's $1,000. If you don't know where the expenses were for, you have not been tracking it properly in QuickBooks and you're just starting fresh with this credit card or with a new account in a credit card, then you would do opening balance typically. Now, is that the ideal account? Not necessarily. The ideal account is to know where the expenses were paid and enter all those charges. you don't know, you can just say starting credit card. Okay. I just want to make sure, no chat. Okay, good. So you guys are all understanding. Perfect. All right, so that's how you can start a new, for some reason my screen's being a little bit silly, so I just have to save it, make it smaller. Okay, so you click record, and now your credit card has an opening balance. If you have 20, 30, 100 transactions, but you never started opening balance, you just go to the bottom, do what I just did. So if there was 100 transactions in here, I could still go to the bottom and enter my transaction and backdate it, and it will go back up to what you need it to be. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a little bit more complex. Okay, so we've created our credit card. We've started our opening balance. Now we're gonna grab our credit card statement and we're gonna start entering. Now, typically most credit card statements are mid-month. So if you wanna grab your credit card statement and you wanna start mid-month, it's easiest to enter the whole month worth of transactions versus trying to find a beginning balance at some random thing. It's just better to use the beginning of a credit card statement. It's just the easiest, okay? So if you go under banking, enter credit card, or from the home screen, like I said, they get you to the same place. Then you are gonna pick your credit card. So if you have multiple credit cards, this is where putting those last 4 digits is really important because you can make sure you're entering in the right place. Yes, you can download transactions. I'm not gonna cover that today. But you can download your transactions and enter them in. So under Wells Fargo, you pick whichever credit card you want to add. And then you're gonna, the top is important. So whether you click on purchase or refund, okay? Now, one thing to say, and I'll explain more about how to do that in a moment, is sometimes when people go to enter like their payments against their credit card, they do a refund. You don't want to do it that way. We'll cover how to do that in a moment. But you want to do your purchase, and you could just say you went to the 76 gas station on, we'll do the current year, and you spent 40 bucks on, oh, I just put 30. It doesn't really matter. $40. You want to make sure you put the right number. And then down here on the bottom, expense tab or item tab. Expense tab is where do you want it to show up? Where do you want to allocate? So one side's the credit card. Where did the money go? How do you want to see it on your profit and loss? So in this example, it's going to be fuel. If you want to put a memo here or here, you can. It's totally up to you. If you want to track it back to a specific job for the cost, you pick that there. And if you want to make it billable, you can mark it or unmark it. So you can track it to a job, but not want to bill the customers for it, but just know where you spent the money. If you want to bill the customer, you make it billable. If not, you unmark that, okay? And then under class, if you use classes, you pick your class. I'm gonna ignore classes for today's training. All right, so what is items? Items are if you have things set up inside your QuickBooks under your items list, you can enter them directly here to go against that expense. Let's see, I see a few chats. Oh, hold on. I've done something to my, where do the chats go? I think that they are right there. Oh, shoot, hold on. They're like, somehow they've popped behind my screen, so I gotta, how do I make them come up? Oh, really? Technology is wonderful when it works. This is for actual credit cards, or does this apply to debit cards? No, this is just for credit cards. Does anybody else have a bad connection? Is my sound okay? Hopefully it is. Okay, so, all right. So you enter your charge. I gotta remember where I was at. When I look at the chat, I always get distracted, and then I'm like, wait, where was I? Yeah, so this is just for credit cards. For debit cards, you just enter them like a regular check, but you can type ATM in there. Okay, so you hit save and close, and that's all you need to do to enter your credit card charges. Where the problem comes in my experience, isn't in how to enter your credit card charges properly. Typically where the problem comes in is paying the credit card. So that's what we're gonna cover next. So you would go through, you enter all your credit card charges from your statement, and then the key is to click Reconcile. So we are gonna pick the Wells Fargo card that I just created. And this is where a lot of people also get confused. So when you have a brand new credit card and you've never reconciled it, the beginning balance, and I think this is Renee's question, I haven't looked at it, but probably, is 0. And people are like, what do I do? And I say, just move on, go to the next step. So let's say that today is our statement ended January 15th and our balance was 140, I think. I started with the $400 and I added 40. You would look at your statement, whatever your statement ending balance, don't worry about the beginning, worry about the ending, is there. You can enter your finance charges if you owe interest here. You could say like $15 interest and the date that they charged you on, which is usually the statement date. The account would be like finance charge. I wonder if I have interest in here. So you can do interest expense or finance charge, up to you. And if you have classes, that will be there. The difference between entering this way versus under the credit card charges is that under the credit card charges, you can put it to a vendor and go back and find it. If you enter it here, it doesn't have a vendor to go to. It does show up on the profit and loss, but it won't show up under vendors and Wells Fargo, okay? I'm gonna hit 0 for now on that, and I'm gonna click continue. Then you're gonna come in, I must have more than one Wells Fargo. So you're gonna come in here and you're gonna start check marking all of your stuff. Where is my beginning balance? Hold on, I think I have 2 Wells Fargos and I didn't know it. Just a second. So there's that Wells Fargo. Oh, I used 1,000. Right. I said 100. It was really 1,000. I forgot. I change my mind sometimes. So look at, this is a good example. I made a mistake, but I can fix it. So if you get in here and you're like, oh, I typed the wrong number. So like, let's just say we check mark these and then we get to the bottom and we're like, difference 900. There should be no difference. You click modify and then you just come here and you change, you go, oh shoot, I accidentally entered the ending balance wrong. Continue. And then you come in here and now your difference is 0. You always want to make sure your difference is 0 before moving forward, okay? If you have a lot of transactions, you haven't, you're going to go back and, excuse me, you're going to go back and redo all of 2018 because you never did it and you're ready for taxes and you know you need to do this. This little hide feature up here on the top right is magic because, well, I call it magic. It won't, whatever date you picked here for your statement date, you want to make sure you're in the right year since we're in a new year. Every now and then people accidentally pick the current year and then your statements get, the date gets all messed up. So you want to make sure for the period of, and you have that date. And then if you click this hide, anything beyond that date will disappear. So if you have multiple months, that's a really great feature. Mark all, unmark all, go to. If you want to like go look at the transaction, you can double click it or click go to, and then it will take you over to look at that transaction. All right. Then the other key that I tell people when they can't reconcile the credit card is don't worry so much about the beginning balance on the first time. What you want to make sure is that you would uncheck your beginning balance is what I would do. Then I would make sure that all my payments and all my credit cards down here on the bottom left match exactly what was in my statement. And then if that's all good, I would check mark my beginning balance and the ending balance should be great. So I always recommend that people check the bottom left if you find that you're not balancing your statements, like your credit card statement, your bank statement. Typically you'll find, is it your payments that are off, meaning the money you've paid down, or deposits, depending on if you're in a bank or credit card, or is it your charges? When you figure that out, then you can go back in and kind of find where the mistake is at, what you're missing, okay? Now this is the next key. So you reconcile your credit card. Whether you've already made payments, whether you've made partial payments, doesn't really matter because you just do in, because it's a common question I get asked, do in QuickBooks exactly what was done in your books. If you made a partial payment, you just make a partial payment. Then you apply that payment, you re-reconcile it, then the next month you apply the payment and you're keeping rolling forward exactly what you did in your business, okay? All right, so after you hit reconcile, you click Reconcile Now. This is the key. It only looks like you have 2 options. So people are like, okay, well, I don't want to write my, or, you know, it's like, do you want to pay it right now? And you could choose that. But if you're not physically paying it today, I don't recommend entering it until you pay it. The reason is because Depending on cash flow, you may owe $1,040, but you might only pay $200. You may pay the whole $1,040. You may not know what you're going to pay today, so don't enter it as a payment. Wait until you actually pay it. So what a lot of people do is they'll enter it as a bill and pay it later. What that does is it takes it out of owing your credit card and it moves it over to accounts payable. I'm thinking in my mind whether I want to click that and then show you guys how to fix it, or if I just want to tell you to do what I would tell you to do. So that's where my hesitation is. I'm actually going to click enter a bill and show you how to fix it. But what I do is I just hit cancel and it takes you on. Actually, I'm just going to show you what I would do and then we'll come back and we'll do another one and then fix that. All right. So you hit cancel. A lot of people don't know that's a lot of people don't know that's a choice. They think they have to choose one or the other because they don't know. So you can hit the X or you can hit cancel on the first screen. Then it goes, here's a summary report for your reconciliation. And this is a preference. Do you want summary? Do you want detail or both? I normally only print summary because in my opinion, the details in the statement and I staple the reconciliation report to the front of my credit card statement or behind it, whatever's easy for you. All right. And then I click print and then I print it and I'm done with that statement. Then, so I'm just going to hit close. Then when I actually pay the credit card, whether you paid online, whether you mail a check, it doesn't really matter. Go to the credit card company, whatever. You click write checks or the check register, it does the same thing. Out of your bank account, you can type in online. So the question about how do you enter a debit, you just write a check or go into the check register either way. And you could type ATM here. You can type debit if you prefer. And that's how you enter in a debit expense, okay? Then the day you paid the credit card. So the credit card statement ended on the 15th. Let's say that we paid on the 22nd of January and we paid it to Wells Fargo. Now you'll notice I have a Wells Fargo LOC. I did a training in my simplified community on how to do a line of credit. You could do Wells Fargo. The nice thing about having different vendors is when you have your QuickBooks set up to do automatic, like it brings up the last transaction. You have more than one. If you pay Wells Fargo more than once, you want to make sure that each credit card has its own. It'll just keep you from accidentally making mistakes. If you have the automatic recall, which I highly recommend, it saves time, but you still have to make sure you did it right. Okay. So we're going to hit add vendor. Okay. And then here, we're going to apply a $200 payment. Okay, because that's what we're actually paying on the credit card. And then we're going to come here, we're going to go up, we're going to find the credit card. Wells Fargo, right there. $200. I'm not going to worry about anything else. I'm going to click save. And now I just made a partial payment. If I paid the full $1,040, you just put the $1,040 in there, right? So then let's go look at what's going on. Oops. What's going on with in our chart of accounts with that credit card. Okay, so this is our credit card. You'll see we owe $840. And there's a check mark because we've reconciled it. And then the blue line means future payments. Normally, it would be the 22nd today. But in this for this example, I went into the future, okay? So now I owe $840. And people are like, now what do? You just do the same thing. You re-reconcile your credit card. You go in, you grab your statement, you enter in any additional credit card charges. So let's say that now we went and we went to Ace Hardware, we spent $100. So you just you move forward, okay? And you bought supplies for your job. I'm not gonna worry about job costing today. And then you just click save. And there you go. Now that one's done. So now the credit card has an additional charge of $100. Now we owe $940. So we start over again and we go, reconcile credit card, and we say $940 balance, right? On the next month, on February 15th. And we did have interest. So let's make this $1, and we're gonna say we had $1 in interest, just to show you how that would work. And we click continue, save anyway. Now we come in here and we go, okay, on our statement, we had a charge and we had a payment, and look at, we balanced to 0. And then I had to figure out how to fix that thing so it stops doing that. Reconcile now. And I'm going to show you how most of you are making a mistake. And an option. So I don't typically teach on YouTube exactly how to use enter bill feature because it's kind of complicated. All right. But I'm going to show you how to do it just because it's a common question and I want to help you guys. Okay. So enter a bill. I don't recommend doing this, but I'm going to click OK. Just to be clear. I'm like, just to be clear. And I'm going to close that. So then here I would type in Wells Fargo credit card, right? So because they're still the vendor. On February 15th, I'm going to create a bill based off what the system says, and I'm going to hit save and close. Now, what happens is inside my credit card now, it shows I have a zero balance. What it does is it moves it over to accounts payable. So now in accounts payable, I have my credit card right there. If you look at a balance sheet, which I forgot to show you before it was under credit card. If we go down to liabilities, before it would be here like a credit card. Now it's up in accounts payable. You can't exactly see it at this moment. Let me go out to February 28th because there's other accounts payable in there, but that's what happens and that's a mistake. But if you do want to enter a bill because the owner or you want to be able to pull a vendors, like how much is owed. Let me go through the end of the month. Like you want to see it here for them to pay or in your accounts payable to pay. What you need to do is when you're going to pay the bill, I don't normally recommend this because it's a high probability of mistake. So I don't typically teach it. But if you needed that, what you would do is say you're going to make another $200 payment. You would literally need to go into the bill and say $200. Oh, I have 2 decimal points by accident. $200 is all I'm actually going to pay on this bill. Change the dollar amount. So this is more work. That's why I don't typically teach it. And then you're going to go pay your bill. So whether you're in there or the home screen, gives you the same result. So we changed the bill to $200. Now we paid the bill for $200. The reason I have you change the bill is because you want to be able to reconcile your credit card every month. And if you don't change the bill, your credit card will never be able to reconcile. So you have to physically change the dollar amount of the bill, and then you can still reconcile. It's not my preferred method, but it's a possibility. So I just want to show it to you guys. So let's say we make this one on February 22nd. How do I make this go away? Can somebody share with me? How do you make your toolbar disappear? So does anybody else have this problem? Is it just me? I think it's because I'm in Zoom, and so it's, and then I'll just type in online here. So when you go to pay your bill, if you just type, you could type in online, you don't have to have a check number. You click assign check number here to get that feature, if you don't know. All right, and then done. Now we go back into reconcile the credit card. Actually, I'll just click here, reconcile. We find that credit card. Are you guys following along? Is this making sense? So 741 would be the amount now owed because we changed it. Check mark that, look, we still balance. But it's because we changed the bill to the amount we actually were gonna pay. Okay. Partial payments, you just do exactly what happened. Full payments, exactly what happened. My preferred method is the first one I showed you. You cancel, and then when you pay the credit card, you write the check, and you go directly against the credit card down here. You don't read, so what some people do is they enter in all their credit card charges, and then when they go to pay the credit card, they enter all their credit card charges again, or all the like types of expenses. You enter that when you entered your charge, so you don't want to do it that way. Okay? All right. I think that's enough for today. Otherwise, we can go pretty deep. All right, let's see what you guys are saying. Yes. Why not click enter a bill and pay later? It'll just sit in AP until you corrected it. Hopefully, Alicia, it made sense. You can do that. It's just that if you're not paying, you can use enter bill if you pay the full amount every month. But if you ever pay a partial, you have to make sure you change the bill. So hopefully when I was explaining that, it made sense to you. And Mary, I showed you how to do the debit card, so hopefully that helped you. All right. Try Control Alt capital I. Oh, is that how I fix it? Wait, let me see. It didn't work. I'm always up for like tips. Give them to me. Take them. All right, let's see. So she said that makes sense. Okay, great. All right. So Renee said, thank you so much for doing the webinar. I understand everything to reconcile and not to enter a bill. I believe you create a vendor account to enter each card. Okay. And this vendor account will remain 0. Do you enter a bill in the vendor side for the amount you pay? Okay, so I covered that. So Renee should be good. If you're still here, Renee, and let me know in the chat side. So I have the Q&A sides for questions and then the chat side for chat. It just helps me stay organized. What is the YouTube video for the one credit card with multiple secondary? I'll have to look it up. I think it's, let me actually go look at my blog real quick. Hold on one second. That's my Facebook. Candus, Kampfer. One second. I'll show you about the corporate credit card was the question. If you go to my blog and then you go to my credit cards, or I mean my blog and then my QuickBooks tips, and you go down to right here where it says search, let's do corporate. I think that's what I called it. That's the thing sometimes, knowing what I called something. There we go. How to enter corporate credit card. Boom. Right there. I guess I could click on it and give you the link. But you could go there. That'd probably be... let me see if I can find my chat again. There's the link for you. All right. Was it cutting out for other? Oh, you're at the airport. So, but it's, I'll send you the replay when we get done. It didn't hide it right now. It didn't work, Rachel. Bummer. Okay. So, thank you, Susan. All right. So one thing I will tell you guys is, if you didn't hear originally, I'm doing a workshop next week. And I highly recommend coming to that. If you're wanting support, come check it out. If you haven't also heard, so I do a mastermind twice a year, and I'm going to be doing my Conference QuickBooks Mastermind starting next week. So if you've been like waiting for Conference QuickBooks to be available, it's coming out. It's been closed, and I open up for enrollment a couple times a year. So getting started, I think it's 2019. I should have wrote that link down better. Yeah, I messed that up. I'll find it and I'll send it to you guys in the replay. Let's see, but, oh, it's right here. Actually, live workshop getting started. Haha, I had a good spot for it. Right there. So getting started workshop. I recommend coming to that if you have, like, if you're having a hard time with your QuickBooks. All right. So let's see what the next, I'll put it in the link in the URL. I also sent it to you guys. All right. We do not use a credit card yet. Does anyone have one they recommend that you can get great rewards for travel? So Samantha's asking if you guys have any recommendations on credit cards. You could put that in the chat for her. I have no idea. That's not something I know. I'm understanding the expense part, but I'm confused about the item section. You would only use items, Vanessa, if you have your QuickBooks set up with like items here, and then the item is linked to a cost of goods. I'm not going to cover that today because it's not typically what most people have. But if you have your items set up, you would know that, then you would use items. Okay, good. Yes. So somebody's asking, they're asking, I use feed transactions where you download the charges. The only reason I didn't show that is I don't know if I have any in here. Bank feeds. This is like a sample file. But if you go to your bank feeds and you download them, yeah, you just want to make sure, look, I have some in here. I try to keep a few just so I can show you. You just make sure that you have your payee and then the account is going to the right place. And if you need more detail, you go, hold on one second. You go here and click add more detail. All right, so yes, if you're already using it, great. Saves time. It's like some people are on the online version because they want the feature of being able to download, but I'm like, you can download on desktop. I prefer desktop actually. Okay. I mean, I use online myself, but I like desktop personally. I have never reconciled my credit cards in years. I download the transactions to QuickBooks, and when the bill comes, I pay it. How does this affect me? I do reconcile my check account. So Susan, the only way to know that you entered all your credit card charges properly, that you didn't accidentally miss something, because just because you download stuff, sometimes it duplicates or sometimes something totally gets missed. Reconciling just like your bank account, the only way, it's a great question, to know that you did it right is to reconcile. If you've been doing it for years and you think your stuff's right, you can go back and just reconcile it. Or moving forward, if your stuff is super messed up, you can create a new QuickBooks credit card and start a fresh year with a fresh credit card, and just move forward. Like transfer your balance over if you have one, you paid it off every month, however that works, and then you just start fresh. Good question. Okay, Rachel, how can I start the new year off fresh with entering credit cards? I was just talking about that. I've not entered anything in the past 2 years in my QuickBooks file for credit cards as accounts. I only enter it as paid when it hits the bank statement. So if you pay your credit card off every single month, you can do that. You can just enter. So what's the benefit of, like, I hear the question coming up, well, what's the benefit of entering credit card charges? Gives you more detail under where you spent the money. You can choose to just type in Wells Fargo credit card, say you paid $200 and come down here and type in like 120 for fuel. That's a total for the statement. And then office supplies and say 80 bucks. And it would still total your 200, but you'd be broke out by here. I used to do this more frequently. I now recommend more often to actually enter your credit card charges, just because it gives you so much more detail. But if you want to do it that way, Rachel, you can. I'm just rereading the rest of her question. So if I know what I spent all the money on, can I just do journal entries? Or do you recommend entering each statement as a summary for each month? Yeah, I mean, if you could technically enter your credit card charges as a charge, but as a summary, you could do that as well. It really depends. There's not one size fits all for everybody. There's a lot of variables. So it depends. Do you pay your credit card off every month? Do you want detail within your QuickBooks, or do you want to keep it super simple? All those things matter. Because if somebody wants to know, well, how much did I spend at Home Depot last year? How much did I spend at whatever your supplier is? Or like one time I was curious, like my husband loves this local coffee place. I'm like, I track my QuickBooks and I'm like, I wonder how much you spend in coffee. It wasn't as much as I thought, honestly. But you could track that kind of stuff if you put the detail in, and it just depends what you want, right? So I had a girlfriend, I taught her she's one of my clients who became one of my friends, and she wanted to track her husband's spending at this like little convenience store down the street, because she's like, I think he spends way more money there than he thinks. And so she started tracking it and she showed it to him. But the only way you can actually track that, I mean, you could technically have its own expense account, but that's extra work, is to enter the detail. So it's up to you guys what you do. I'm going to check real quick on Facebook to make sure I have not been ignoring them. Does it come out of your bank account, Renee? Yes, it does. I don't know what that question actually means, but it does come out of your bank account if that's where you put it. Okay, I see some comments on Facebook. I don't want to ignore them. Let me turn down my volume so we don't hear ourselves twice. I don't have to hear myself twice. April, when you download the credit card statement, why is there duplicate transactions? So sometimes on credit card, depends if you have like a corporate account. Sometimes it downloads the corporate account and the individual cards. You just have to be conscious when you're entering them how it's set up. And if you have a corporate credit card, that can happen. And sometimes within even the QuickBooks Online, like I have Wells Fargo, and there was like a problem for a while with downloading duplicates. It's just there's room for error. And that's also why we reconcile, so that if you accidentally like, we're just entering what it said and not really realizing it, you can remove all those extras. All right. How does it come out of your bank account? I think we covered that. So pretty sure. Renee, are you still confused about how it comes out of your bank account? Let me know in the chat. Backdoor into adding prior year. I'm not covering, Vicki, I'm not covering anything to do with outside of credit cards today, just credit cards. Usually with like QuickBooks Simplified, I cover a little bit at the end of other topics, but not today. Sorry. Backdoor into adding prior. I think it's Google. Vicki, this is what I'll tell you. Google, you can Google that, and there's like I have to look it up because I haven't used it in a little bit, but there's like a Control-Alt-Y or something like that, and it gives you how to do year-end totals for payroll. But just Google it. It should give it to you. Okay, Sam is helping me out with how to fix my taskbar. He says, right-click on the empty area of your taskbar settings and toggle automatically hide desktop. Okay, so would it be this one, desktop? Did I do it right? Sam was part of our QuickBooks, our mastermind last time, so I'm like, how do I do it? Tell me. All right, I entered the charges once I received the statement. Is that okay? Yeah, perfect. That's what I do. I don't enter my charges as I go. I just do it from the statement. It's the easiest for me. Click on the taskbar at the bottom. This one? I love you guys. Thank you for helping me. That's part of this, right? Like I help you guys, you help me. So like this? What? I don't know what I'm doing. No. I'm saying no. Rachel's saying yes. No on an empty area on the taskbar. Okay, so on the empty area, and then what do I click? We'll have to have a little powwow after this. So you can help me fix why my stuff isn't wrong. Okay. Jason Brown says, thank you for your time and knowledge. You're good. That's funny. We use American Express. Perfect. Thank you for your training. Very helpful. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay, cool. So we're going to go, unless you guys have any, do you guys have any other questions? You are in the right place. Taskbar toggle. I kind of feel embarrassed that okay, I'm going to read the chat after I'm done, and I will figure it out the best I can. And if I can't, Sam, I'm going to hit you up so that I can do it. Okay, so if you know about Commons QuickBooks, you've been wondering about it, I recommend joining the waiting list because you'll be the first to be notified. It's just confidencewithquickbooks.com. What is Confidence QuickBooks? Confidence QuickBooks is my online course that takes you step by step through learning QuickBooks. So there's 5 modules, and then each module covers an area, right? So right now it's not open, but you can enter in your information, and when it becomes open next week, you can be notified. I'll email you and let you know all the details and what it's going to look like and how it works. But basically, in a nutshell, we have 5 weeks. You have access to the course for life, but over 5 weeks, every month, once a week, every week we release a new module. So I go to how to set up QuickBooks properly, what's cash versus accrual basis, kind of like the basics. Then the next week we get into more detail. So then we cover vendors, how to enter bills, how to use 1099s, all of that. Then the next week we cover credit card customers, how to use, create an estimate, create an invoice, which one of these you need to use, and then it goes along that way. And then the next week we cover the banking, reconciling credit cards, everything we covered today and a lot more. And then the last week we cover reports. So you do all the ways to enter your data correctly. And then at the end, the reports you need to use it. And the mastermind, you actually get to join a small group of people, which is what I'm going to be doing right now, a small group of people where we meet and I answer your miscellaneous questions. In a small group, I can actually talk to you, that kind of thing. So if that's something you're interested in, I highly recommend joining the waiting list so that you can be notified. Sam, you was at the right place. Okay, good. Excellent course, highly recommend, worth the investment. Thank you, Sam. We had a good time. One of the main things that I heard, one of the things I heard the most that was touched my heart probably, well, there were things people are I was way overspending in my taxes and I'm not now, stuff like that. which is always really highly important to me. But I also, if you know me, I love inspiration. And one of my favorite things that people told me was they got way more out of it than just QuickBooks. And I don't want to say just QuickBooks, but there was more to it than that. So don't forget, I dedicate today to love. And notice how wonderful life can be when you approach each day with the attitude of love, whether that's loving yourself and being kind or loving other people. All right. Thank you for being here. I hope I get to see you guys next week on next week's workshop. Getting started. It's called Getting Started, and it covers some getting started stuff. But what it really covers is how to look at the end and work your way backwards in how you design and build your QuickBooks. All right. That's the key. Thank you for being here. If you have any additional questions, I will see you guys next week. And hopefully you won't be struggling with your credit cards any longer. Toodaloo. Bye.